Well, Christina and I will talk about something that we, just to give some examples for people who maybe weren't here last time, or to kind of jog you guys' memory about what we talked about. Some of the things we looked at. Christina, you want to talk about one of the things we immediately cut when we started doing this?
One of the things we immediately cut was our billboards. They just weren't effective for us. They were a high dollar value to maintain and to keep the graphics up and to keep them looking neat and fresh. It was just costing us more than we felt was necessary for the impact we were getting back on them.
And one of the ways we realized that they weren't being useful was that we were surveying, and we had one of our billboards, for example, was a take back for our take back events and our disposal boxes, and we survey at our boxes and at our semi-annual events, and no one was saying they heard about it from the billboards. It was always from radio or newspapers, so that was one. And then, do you want to talk about T-shirts, Christina?
Oh, yes. We had fallen into the trap of buying T-shirts for, it felt like, everybody and their brother. And really what it came down to is we recognized that the value of those T-shirts weren't creating the community level change that we were seeking, and that we could better spend that money. So we told the schools that were predominantly getting the T-shirts that we would help partner with them and even find other funders for T-shirts. But that was something that we would have to cut, but we would still be able to put money into campaigns and policy change within their schools. So we weren't going to change our presence, just maybe the goodies they were getting.
Okay, so has anyone thought of something by raise of hands that they would like to share that they kind of came up with? Oh, Rochelle, would you like to share something?
Yeah, we did similarly. We got rid of the billboard dollars. The health department is covering that. We still have a prominent billboard, so we're just not paying for it. And
Great.
We've been working closely with the health department and their tobacco funding for a lot of initiatives and incentives for kids and that sort of thing.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. And as Rochelle said, she was a great example of leveraging, that she was able to take something out of her budget, still have it because they thought it was important, but have someone else pay for it. That was a great example. Thank you. What about successes? I asked for you go back and look at something that you're like, wait, we're doing that really well. Does anyone have an example of a success that are like, maybe this is something that we could look more into expanding for maybe generating revenue? Did anyone have an aha moment? Oh, Rochelle, please share. Oh,
yeah, we're having fun with the Healthy Tennessee Communities Initiative. It's really helped us build capacity. It's trying to get communities to eat better, exercise, and not smoke, basically.
And how have you partnered with them?
We actually took it on, and so it is now a subcommittee of our Prevention Coalition.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that has allowed us, with the tobacco initiatives that we're working on, it's allowed us to get in because we're trying to get churches and businesses. So that opens the door for us to get into those places to be working on those things. And then also our hospital has gotten really excited about what we were doing. And so they're looking to possibly give us a grant to keep those initiatives going.
Congratulations. That's amazing. This is, again, like such a great example of how you can increase your reach by great capacity building. And Christina and I, our motto of anything is that sustainability is capacity. There's no way, if you don't have a strong foundation of capacity, that you can continue. And that story is so similar to what we were able to do with moral recognition therapy. We knew we needed it, but we couldn't pay for it. Finding people in the community to do it. So, and that reach with the hospital and that partnership, that's a great example. And I am going to call out one person because they don't have their hand raised, but I know that they worked really hard on something that Christina and I have always thought was a great idea. At Hamilton County Coalition, I know they have some great youth that have worked on some workbooks and things like that they've put together. And I don't know if Calandra would be willing to share a little bit about that. I'm going to call Calandra. Don't hate me. Maybe not. Well, I will brag for them that they have worked really hard with their youth, and they have a great group of youth that they take around and train, and they have come up with a workbook the youth have put together for other youth Oh, she says, hold on, she's working on volume. Are you there, Calandra? Okay, she said, go ahead. So they put together a great thing, and that's something that, you're in the trenches and you're doing the great work, and sometimes it takes someone else to realize, hey, that's something you could copyright and other people could use, particularly because their youth are working so hard on it. And not only would that be a great way for them to generate revenue, but it's a great way to support and recognize the hard work that their community is doing on something and give their kids another way to be proud of the hard work they're doing. So I think that's a great one I know of from the coalitions on the phone. So thank you all. That was your homework. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for following up with that, and Rochelle for sharing. And we'll go ahead and move on to part 2, and Christina's going to kick us off.
So I'm sure you've been dying to know what askers versus doers is, and this is something that it took us a while to figure out that there could be 2 different categories. They're a meld of 2 categories, but askers are those people that aren't scared to go out there. They ask for dollars. They ask for rental space. They're really great at making those big asks. And doers are typically people who they would rather write a grant or build capacity in another way. That's just their strength opposed to fundraising or asking for things. So before we move on too quickly, by show of hands, how many of you think, just by those short descriptions, you think you're an asker?
I'm so proud of askers because Christina and I both, we love our jobs, so we're definitely doers. I think it's a special skill to be someone who can go and ask for things. And I see Stacy has her hand raised, and she is definitely an asker. And it's impressive people with that skill. Okay, so
right.
if you guys put down your
okay. Yeah, so put down your hands. No, we're on the same train. And if you think you're a doer, let me see your hands.
There's a lot of doers.
A lot of doers. Sometimes doers can be done behind closed doors. Awesome. You guys can put your hands down. And some people really have a great blend. They don't mind asking, but they're great at finding new ways to do. Christina and I, like she said, we both our strengths are doers. We're definitely doers. I am learning to be an asker, but it still is much easier for myself to be a doer, and we like to seek out askers. So if you could use your little chat box, let's talk about the top ways you think that doers do. So what are some things that you would imagine doers do? Oh, did I just cheat, Christina?
No.
Okay.
You haven't put it up yet, so you're good. Yeah, so like Christina said, go ahead and use your chat box. And any examples of talking, so if asking is, asking people for money, asking people for supplies, what do doers do? And I'll just give you an example right off what we're talking about. Okay, so one thing a doer would do is grant write. What are some other additional, right, grant, there you go, Ginny, yes. What are some other additional ways that you think doers do that find their way around not having to ask for things? Good job, Ginny. Leverage resources. Come on. Christina and I will wait through the awkward pause. If there's one more person who can come up with something, there's no wrong answer.
No. And there's some that we learn every time we do this that somebody else thought of that we had not thought of.
Okay. You're making me sad, Christina.
Oh, using time. Good job, Calandra.
And then Ginny has create product. Oh. Yeah, see, we just had to wake them up. Okay, so top ways doers do. Christina, you want to start talking about some of the ones we have?
Yeah, so obviously grant writing is at the top of our our list. And that goes for little grants, for just supplies, to foundational grants, all the way up to, for coalitions, the big crown jewel, the DFC. So grant writing, and that's a skill. I mean, really, to find someone who's a great grant writer and to find someone who has that skill, it's fabulous. Silo destruction, it's another way to build capacity too, but we have our health department tobacco dollars, and we have tobacco dollars. And so destroying some of those silos that have been built and really working towards, okay, so that isn't in my plan, but this piece is in my plan. And so let's work together to push that whole momentum forward. Obviously advocating, which is why we love Pat so much, advocating either for more dollars or for even local dollars from your community all the way up to the state and federal levels. Leveraging, Rochelle, you've given some great examples of leveraging. Christina and I love to leverage with capacity because it helps us continue to expand our programs or expand our reach, but also get more people involved and get the community more involved. And thinking outside the box. Sometimes, we get pigeonholed to our action plans, we get pigeonholed to what substance we're working on, or what our funding streams look like. And so, really staying on mission. We don't need to be doing, I don't know. Let's say, I want to say litter pickup. Maybe that's not something a coalition should be doing. But if maybe, we partner with an organization that needs community service hours and they can do the litter pickup, but we're staying on mission by educating those volunteers why cigarettes are dangerous. So then that way we're thinking outside the box, but we're still working towards the mission. And then, like our Count It, Lock It, Drop It campaign, generating revenue. So how can we keep our services sustainable in terms of either dollar value or manpower value?
And generating revenue is, and we're going to talk more about kind of the ins and outs of that coming up. But it is so important that it's still on mission, because as Christina and I know firsthand, it can easily take over your coalition as you're trying to build something like this. And so you have to remember, and this is what I hope as you take this on, if you do develop a good product, that the reason you're doing this is to sustain and continue the efforts of the work your coalition's doing, not to become something else. And we have to remind our board of that all the time, and thinking about as being very deliberate as you grow this and think about generating revenue, whether it is just providing, responsible beverage service class or something else, that it doesn't become so much a part of your time, it's particularly legally can't, depending on how you're funding, that you lose mission, and part of the reason you're doing this is to put more money back into your community to do the great work that you're doing. And so that's kind of goes to generating revenue, but also making sure you're thinking on mission when you're thinking about this. And I think the silo destruction, it goes to capacity building, like Rochelle brought up. It's so important to work together with people in different ways. And I really think doers are yes people. We find you say yes to everything and find ways that we can work with anyone, because the way I feel about it is there's not one person you shouldn't be working with in your community. You say yes and you figure out a way that you can impact them with the work of drug and alcohol abuse prevention, because everyone in our community has been impacted by drug and alcohol abuse in some way. So there's no way to not be working in a positive way with someone. So I think doers are like yes people, askers are too, but I just think in particular that they're like, yes, we can figure out a way to do this. Okay, one more, going back to budgets. And I'm going to have Christina kind of talk about some of this as well. But sometimes you have to stop doing something your community's been doing for a long time. And for some of you who have been involved in coalition work for a while, you've heard the kind of tagline, low-hanging fruit. And we've all been there. Whether you're an established coalition or a developing coalition, we have all been at the table at one time where we just want to get people moving, and we say yes to something that might not be our favorite just to get people on board and involved, even if we've told them over and over again that we don't bring speakers in, or we've told them that that's not an evidence-based thing. Sometimes we say yes because it involves them, and that's great. There's not a reason to stop doing that at first. But then what the problem becomes when you continue something like Christina was talking about earlier, like us saying yes to T-shirts, when there's no longer a reason. Once you have them involved, there's no longer reason to continue doing something and spending money on something that isn't working once that capacity has been built. And so sometimes we have to, it's kind of like when people get stuck in the, we were doing it because we've always done it, and I know particularly all of us have heard that in communities, well, we do it because that's the way it's always been done. And sometimes the hardest thing is to say, we can't do that anymore. It's not working. And I'm going to not be everyone's favorite person because I'm going to bring up one of the ones that we bring up a lot in our community, which is the after graduation parties that they have at the school. At one point, that might have been working, but now very few people go, and it becomes a place where kids just want to go to get like their free computers, and they're going out and partying maybe not that night, but several nights later, and it makes the community feel good, but we're putting lots of money into it, and it's not really working for our community anymore. Like, I'm talking about our community. I'm not calling out all after graduation programs. But that's one example, but I would say is sometimes you have to do that. And Christina, do you want to talk a little bit more about maybe cutting ties with toxic relationships?
Right, and all this we've had to go through. So we've hit the bumps. We've kind of done it the wrong way and the right way. But I can think of a recent one. We had to cut ties with an organization that, we were getting word that they weren't doing things at the caliber that we do things, and even though we're partners, we're not the same organization. People were misconstruing that we were a similar organization or we were together, and so we had to cut ties with them and really just separate ourselves. We still work with them on a limited basis, but we really had to try and separate ourselves because we didn't need that reputation. We didn't need that effect in our relationship building that we had already built. And so that was one of our toxic relationships that we really had to just kind of move away from. But every time we've had to do this, we realize that there'll be a lull in time that maybe we don't have a relationship with that entity or that organization, but we always kind of come back together in a much stronger way. So that has been pretty effective for us, that when we will find out that relationship is super toxic and harming us in one way or the other, that it just benefits our organization and ultimately benefits our budget simply because they're not asking for things, or we're not spending extra time trying to repair those relationships or repair those things that have happened, that we're actually being able to move forward instead of staying there kind of repairing everything.
And as Christina said, this was a very strategic cut. We're not telling you to go out and be like, no, we don't want to talk to you anymore, peace out, or ghost them by stop talking to them altogether. It was a very strategic move that was done in a way that wasn't going to harm other partnerships, and it ended up not harming our capacity, if that makes sense, because we did it in a way that made sense. We just weren't like, peace out, bye. So it is a strategic move when it comes up to that, and you have to be thoughtful about the way you do it. But it is important for your organization and your reputation, but also for your budget if it's not working. And stopping bad behavior, Christina brought this up earlier with the T-shirts in the school systems. What was happening was Red Ribbon Week would come up and they'd want a new campaign because everyone needs T-shirts. And I'm not joking. I wish I was joking to tell you that they even asked for toboggan hats and shoelaces one year. I wish I could say I was joking, but they did. And so we got to the point that we obviously needed those relationships, and they were obviously excited about giving their students something. So what we came up with is that, not T-shirts, but that we would come up with get paid items, change them out in their school system throughout, every 3 months to 6 months, and keep the campaign that starts in October going all year long with new things in the classroom in order to make sense of the campaign items we did purchase for them, and get more bang for our buck, and actually build capacity and training within the school system. So stopping bad behavior is sometimes working through kind of something like that, where there's a compromise about how you can each get what you want. And I noticed, and I wasn't trying to ignore it, there was hands raised. Does someone have a question or comment? Okay, and Kim says, what about repairing relationships that were severed under previous leadership or where continues to be boundaries such as law enforcement? Yeah, so that, I think this happened to all of us. I think Christina and I have both seen it in our coalition. So we did at one point, like everyone, I think, we had an employee that didn't work out for our organization, and they did some damage in ways that we didn't realize, because sometimes when you've been working with partners for a long time, they really trust you, and sometimes they don't want to tell you what's going on. So I wish, and we've had these conversations with our board and our coalition now, when this comes up with other employees, please talk to us now in the future. But we found out that there were several different relationships, including a school system and law enforcement, that weren't working out because of this employee's behavior. And really we just had to go back in and apologize. You know, sometimes it just takes that, listen, we're not the same person. This was not who we are. And this is how we want to move forward differently with you. And sometimes it's finding the end, a new end that's exciting for them, or that they need money or they need assistance doing something. For our law enforcement, we had an issue when we built a new jail that they weren't going to take, or they didn't want to do our drug disposal program on the permanent boxes. And it wasn't because of us. It was because the person that was in charge of the evidence wasn't he didn't want the extra work of dealing with the removal of the boxes, because one of the things that we have is a policy that they have to give us that data and information, and he was feeling a burden of that. So one of the ways we fixed it is to provide a ton of positive reinforcement to the sheriff's office. And we sent out to all the commissioners and all the aldermen and the mayors a press release with how important this program has been, how much that all the law enforcement have done for us with supporting this program, talking about the effectiveness, how we've won awards for it, and that this is how much we've decreased, and this is a street value that we've gotten off the streets because of this. And there was so much positive press from it, they had to keep it, and we let them know that we were thankful in that way for it. And so they really started to back it. Then Kristina's had to do some work with the Sheriff's Department. Again, just letting them know how, Kristina, you want to kind of talk about how they're finally on board doing the data again, and after we got them to keep the box.
Yeah, once we had the box, then our next challenge was the data stopped coming in. And so we found out that they were having issues with the disposal of it, and that they were trying to just deal with it on their own. So when the TDEC and TBI new disposals came around, we made sure that they knew that that was happening, that, that the paperwork, that was involved, that anything we needed or they needed from us that we were willing to do. And so now monthly, without asking, we get that data. And we get it kind of cheerfully. So it's been an uphill battle, but we've been able to slowly but surely repair those relationships or find new ways. And I think the other thing, Kim, to answer your question, is sometimes you have to find almost a third or fourth party. You have to find somebody who maybe it's not yourself, but maybe it's someone within your coalition who has a great relationship with that law enforcement or whatever the sector is, that can slowly bring those people back into the fold, or to bring them to meetings, or to have a conversation with them. Because sometimes it's not us, unfortunately, that can build that relationship. It's somebody else that can help break down some of those barriers. That maybe it's just a miscommunication, or it's just some kind of misconceived thing. But I found that sometimes a third party can really help us to repair that, or to bring those relationships back to the table.
And sometimes it really is a waiting game to continue, not stalking them, but to always invite them and to just keep being open and thinking of new ways. Every time something new comes up, a way that you can involve them. Because sometimes it isn't you and it's not your organization. It's something happening internally with them. I know there's been a few times that Kristina and I were really felt that a commissioner or someone was invested in us and involved, and then suddenly they weren't showing up again, and we took it as a personal thing, or that we did something wrong, to later find out in just some conversation that it was a lot of personal stuff happening with them, and it just wasn't the time, and we had to find someone maybe lower level that could represent them there, or someone else. So kind of figuring out maybe if it's not a personal thing with the coalition or staff and it's something happening internally there, another way you can involve them at a different or less involved level. But I think always thinking about new ways to involve them, and thinking about where they're struggling and ways that you can help them or promote them. Particularly with law enforcement, I've always found the way that thanking them and promoting them for the hard work they're doing has always been our biggest in with them. And so those, like I said, those letters to the commissioner and aldermen about their hard work, was the in we needed to make the next step to keeping the program at the level we wanted to keep it at. So I, keep on keeping on. And okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our next, talking about taking off your nonprofit hat and putting on your business hat. We talked about this earlier, but for those who are new, that did not attend the part one, and I'll say what I said again just to reiterate that yes, there's a difference between business and nonprofit work, and that's why I say you want to run it like a nonprofit business, because yes, businesses are trying to make every dollar so they can make money, but what we're trying to do is run and streamline our nonprofit like a business so we can make money that puts back money into our community, and that allows us to stay in the great activities and make the impact and change we want in our community. So we are a business with a heart. And so that's what you have to think about. I get it. We're not cutthroat. We're not trying to every dollar trying to make, but we are trying to find a way to generate and use our money in a way that is thoughtful and has the most community impact, and that's why it's so important. And I was looking in the chat box again, and Kim was talking about, yes, they're doing a law enforcement appreciation dinner this month, so that's another great idea. So Christina, would you like to do the legal disclaimer?
Always. Like everything else, there's always a legal side to things, and we want to make sure that everyone understands that we're providing a general outline of how to generate income through setting up a for-profit venture. We always will tell you to check with your federal, state, and local laws, make sure you're proceeding correctly. Don't go to your DFC program manager and tell them what the Kristina told us, because we want you to be able to do your homework and you feel comfortable with what you're doing and that your board feels comfortable with what you're doing. And we always recommend leveraging the assistance of a local accountant and following up with your grant funders to make sure that it fits the parameters.
Yes. And I will tell you this, because I know a lot of you have state funding. You are contracted to do the work in which you have a contract with the state to do. And so doing something like trying to raise money, you might not be legally allowed to do that under your grant contract. So make sure that you talk to the people you need to talk to and make sure that's okay, because we do not want to get you into trouble. We love you, and we want you to stay with us. Okay, so do you have a business opportunity? And this is some of your homework that we talked about. Looking at your data, what is working and not working, and comparing that to your budget. And we have the tool that I gave, and we're going to show it again at the end. If you're doing something well, why are you the only one paying for it? And if it's not working, why are you paying for it is what you want to ask yourself. Looking at the sectors involved, do you have businesses involved? Do you have law enforcement? Who is involved that you could work with in order to increase this business opportunity? Is it reproducible? Is it something like a workbook that you could copyright and trademark and get out there? Is it a campaign that you could reproduce? Is it a service that you could to make sure you get your PowerPoints and everything and that you can market that service? So you have to see if you could do that. Is it needed? Focus groups to figure out if it's something that's actually needed in communities, not just in your community, but around the state. And we're going to talk more about this. And is it proprietary? Is it something new and different that isn't already on the market, that it will fill a niche that needs to be filled? Christina, you want to talk about our story?
Yeah, so this is our story with our campaign. We initially started, probably like a lot of everyone else, with disposal sites. When DEA was looking at permanent disposal sites and semi-annual disposal sites, we were definitely doing those things in our community and needing ways to get the information out. And so we slowly started building campaigns and partnerships. And then we realized that, okay, so we're marketing the disposal sites, but we need more. We need a better comprehensive plan. So we partnered with PIRE, the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, who's our evaluators out of Kentucky, to do medical professional focus groups to find out what do doctors need, what do doctors and pharmacists already have in their offices, or what can they do in their offices, and kind of even run through what we're thinking on our end and with the feasibility of those things. And so we got a lot of information out of those groups. And we really, because like all coalitions, we don't want to do something to the medical professionals that they are fully unable to do. We want to make sure it's something that they feel invested in and they feel like they've had a word in and that it's something feasible. And out of that, we started working towards our campaign, and we realized we needed to get all of our ducks in a row and make sure we were moving forward and continuing that momentum. So we created a communication plan, which really helped our coalition not only help staff to be able to know where we were going, but help know what volunteers were going where and what businesses were already being targeted. So we weren't duplicating services. And through that communication plan, we created a pretty solid short-term action team. We don't use committees. That's a very dirty word in Coffee County. So we created short-term action teams where really people could take very digestible pieces of the campaign, and they helped us create pieces, edit pieces, and then distribute the campaign. And then the full-on kit and caboodle came out of Count It, Lock It, Drop It. And we started working towards then not only using it in our own community, but also creating a sustainability plan around Count It, Lock It, Drop It.
And I'll tell you guys, when you're thinking outside the box, there's going to be people who think you're crazy. And really, when I think about our whole story and how we got to where we are in terms of this way of generating revenue, it really started all the way back in 2009 when we started looking at prescription drug abuse before the state and before the nation was, because we had our ears to the ground and we heard about what was going on, the stories that were happening in our community around prescription drugs. And so we were doing our own focus groups around it and finding out that our suspension and expulsion rates, that the drug that they were being expelled for was actually prescription drugs. When a lot of people were looking at alcohol, meth was huge at the time, marijuana, things like that, that we uncovered that. And a lot of people were not looking at it yet. And at first the state was even not sure they were going to put it in the survey at the time. And we're like, no, this is something that is happening in our community. And then, of course, the next big thing that came out was the Drug Enforcement Administration doing the drug take-backs. And so that was one of the first things when we saw that our data was about access to prescription drugs and about perception of harm. It was a way for us to get it out of homes. That the story started developing that was really about, like Kristina said, marking those sites. And then it became of how can we get the next group of people involved and who are those experts. And when it comes to prescription drugs, it really was the medical community. So this was something that took a while for us to get from point A to point B when you look at the whole history. But what it comes down to is think outside the box and don't, if you think something, you know something's happening in your community because you're there. Even if it's not what a funder is looking at right away, there's a way, prove it to your funder, because we were able to get funded with both the state and the federal grants with it, and really delve into it and figure out what's going on in your community and do that. And sometimes that's where you come up with something that no one's thought about before. So like Christina said, that's how Count It, Lock It, Drop It came to be, to count your meds every 2 weeks, lock them up, and then dispose of them. And as Christina said, we worked with medical professionals to continue to design this from, kind of we started in 2011, it was finally off the ground in 13, to continue to redesign this campaign. Some other ideas, a lot of you are familiar with Parents Who Host Lose the Most, Drug Free Action Alliance in Ohio. We've modeled our program after what they did. As we talked about earlier with Hamilton County Coalition and the workbooks they developed, and even Sullivan County with their environmental scan app is another way if you're developing things like that, things that could help people, that's something else that you could sell or get out there for other people to use and buy. Christina, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you hit it when you talked about thinking outside the box, and that you're not going to most well-laid plans don't happen overnight. So this is something that is slowly evolved and really took a lot of thought and effort. So don't think tomorrow you'll be able to hit the ground running, because it really does take a lot of time to make sure it's not something that'll last just a year. And
so we're going to have our first poll question. It's the first time we've tried this. So which options did you uncover as potential business opportunities? Does everyone see that? Leah, does this? Oh, here it goes. Never mind. Everyone wake up. We have 22 people, and only one's responded, and that makes me sad. Which options did you uncover as potential business opportunities? Selling a product. Oh, there's two. Fee for service, marketing a campaign or program, or other. Okay, and then Rochelle Turner said, why profit versus nonprofit fundraising? Oh, polling is not available, Rochelle. Okay, so Rochelle, would you please type in your answer then? And if you would go ahead and turn off your mute, Rochelle, and ask your question why other people are polling what you mean by why profit versus nonprofit.
I guess I don't have my business hat on. I'm not understanding why we're talking about profit and why we can't just raise funds as a nonprofit.
You are, and thank you for bringing that up. We are talking about what I mean by profit is raising money for the nonprofit. It is the same thing. You're allowed to raise money as a nonprofit as long as it goes directly back into your mission. You can't go buy a car and things like that, but it has to go back directly into your mission and what you're doing, particularly, and this is, like I said, this is why you need to talk to your funders. It needs to go back to what we're doing with our Drug-Free Communities grant because of the way we did this, and we report that money to them. So it is not a business on its own. It is under the coalition, and that funding all goes back to the coalition. So I'm saying profits in terms of we're raising funds for the coalition in this way by selling this product, just like Boosters Club do by having like a snack stand or something. It's just another way of doing it. And I'm just saying profit in terms of because we are selling a product and showing that profit. So thank you for asking that question. Does that make sense now? Rochelle? Yes, and Sarah said it's basically fundraising, correct. Yes, it is fundraising. It's like I said, as long as it's going back to what it's supposed to go to, it's going back to your mission and the work that you're doing, you're allowed to raise funds. Now, I'm going to say this. We only sell our product to other nonprofits because of the sales tax issue, so that we don't have to charge that. We're not worried. If you're going to charge it, it's someone other than a nonprofit that has tax exempt status is going to buy it. You do have to worry about other things like sales tax. And that's why we advise you to get a CPA or accountant on board to help you figure that stuff out because we had to work through that ourselves. Okay, so we had several responses say fee for service, marketing campaign, selling a product, and other. Does anyone want to share in the chat box something they found?
Christina, this is Deborah with Rescue 180. I was just going to make a comment about we've been a little standoffish, even though we have our own 501c3 now. We've done some small fundraisers, but one thing that I'm hoping that this is a good thing, so I'm throwing that out there. Partnering with other organizations, which we have partnered with our 4th Judicial Drug Court, and of course they're working on a big fundraiser, and I've done a couple of small fundraisers for them, but this next one we're going to try to do is a 5K, and okay. Hopefully this is going to be something that, once again, the idea is to partner with Judge Sloan. You all have to know Judge Sloan. He's amazing. He is our judge, and so there's a lot of, he's very available to the community. He's just a good person to have out there in front and be connected with. But my point being that we were going to do a fundraiser with them, but also for their transitional housing, but for Rescue 180 to have a little pocket change too. So, so we could have some, sustainability as far as having some money for Rescue 180. And do you think that is a good way to go about fundraising, finding a key organization, because, he's been very active in our neonatal syndrome issues, and, he's spoken a lot of stuff you guys have probably been at. So that's kind of been my goal, is connecting with organizations, that are out there already and already, doing some amazing things. So what do you think about that? You think
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I think it's a great way, like you said, to get your foot in the door in terms of starting fundraising, because it is, like Christina and I told my board this when I was hired forever ago, that I'm not someone who raises funds like by doing, silent auctions and that type of stuff, that I will write grants all day long and I will generate revenue by doing something like Count It, Lock It, Drop It, but I am not that. But what we did, it was similar to what you're talking about, is we've partnered with like the probation office when they've done something before and they gave us a portion of the funds. Or, for instance, we have a local business owner here that we do a lot of our graphic design work with, who she puts on a Michael Jackson show that's incredible, and she wanted to do a fundraiser for us, and all we had to do was like hand out, help sell the tickets kind of thing. So no, I think that's a great idea. Whenever you can partner with someone, I think it builds capacity. Like you said, he's a great advocate and a stakeholder for you, and it's a way to start kind of slowly getting into, without taking everything on, especially as someone that doesn't have a ton of staff, as a way of doing it, because the reason I've always...
As you would well know, we do not have a large staff. But me, myself, and I, and Keith, which is on the other phone, computer and all. But yeah, I just, we don't want to feel like, we're at the place now where we've been around for a while. We're well known. You had the lady mention the thing about Health for Tennessee. I'm the president of the Health Council. Pat me on the back. It's so wonderful. But anyway, so we have a subcommittee called Jefferson Joins, and we're working in Healthier Tennessee, and it seems like I'm just giving a lot, Christina, and it's not that I'm complaining, but I just don't want to be casting my pearls, So
yeah.
I'm really listening to you guys, because you guys are doing some great things, and you're great mentors, and you've always been one of my great mentors. But I don't want to sound selfish, but I don't want to cast my pearls before swine. I don't want to just spend all my time doing something and then end up with Rescue 180s over in the corner going, I'm over here,
Yes.
And I'm, you hear what I'm saying? I'm giving out a lot to the community because I'm trying to have this wonderful foundation that we've been so standoffish on the fundraising. So if you want to help us in any way, shape, or form, we're going to try to be, listening in on what you guys are doing, because we're stepping out on the water and we're really wanting to get, some cash flow coming in, so we can do some great things, even greater things. And so
and thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. And you guys, you are such a strong coalition. I would say that hearing you talk, and I think Christina will agree for me, you were on the cusp of going to the next level, because we were there. I'm going to tell all of you out there, especially developing coalitions, that when you feel like all you're doing is giving, you're at the time where you've built capacity and you need to turn around and ask for it back. And I would say for me, when I hired Kristina, who's now taken over as director of the coalition, she was what I needed to move to that next level, because she came in and said, you want to kind of talk about, Kristina, how you came in and how we kind of turned that around, because you really saw it from both perspectives once you were hired as staff?
Right. I was a coalition member actually before Kristina was hired as director. So I had been around from almost the beginning, and we knew Kristina was doing great work, but I got there and I said, holy moly, you're doing so much, and the way I understand the coalition is not for you to do all that, and you've done such great things. Why don't we see if we can get some of the members to do some things? So we started really little, and we tested the waters and figured out what worked and didn't work, but we were able to start moving the momentum and asking more for their capacity or their talents. And Kristina had already worked so long to build those relationships that they were more than willing to start helping us move the needle in a positive direction.
Right.
And I see Ken says, do you find fundraising for coalitions difficult simply because outcomes are long-term and people do not get to see the immediate effects of donations? If someone here has had to choose between donating to a coalition versus a local homeless shelter, it seems difficult to sell a coalition. I totally agree with you. I cannot agree with you more. I would say and the reason I wanted to answer this question is because I think it goes with Deborah. It is hard to sell what we do because it is long term, and it took us a while to figure out how to do that. Like I said, for us, generating revenue and getting everyone behind. Because this tool, our law enforcement was involved, our pharmacists were involved, and so for us selling this we're selling them too. We're saying thank you every single day as we sell this. So for us, that has gotten a lot of momentum behind now, even though we've gotten money from this, that we're seeing more donations than we've ever seen because we're just thanking people and we're out there. I do think we started by actually asking for things that were concrete instead of just money, like supplies for the office, even toilet paper and things like that for easy wins. And sometimes it's instead of asking for the coalition in general, for our moral recognition therapy, we worked with the chamber. And we asked businesses for stuff for the token economy, like tickets for the kids to be able to go with their parents to our rec center, or Sonic for local Sonic tickets, or things that were for the youth we were working with, or directly for the law enforcement. So we have found that really narrowing it down to a specific thing we're working on instead of the coalition in general really helped us get the foot in the door. But it is, I think, because we are asking so much for people to be at the table, and that we forget to ask for the money and we can easily sideline ourselves, like Deborah said, or like Kim said, it's difficult because it's not, how do I say it? I think we always say what we do isn't sexy and it's hard to sell because people want to see the face of a treatment. They want to see the homeless shelter they're helping immediately. And so your job is to really put a face on it, the face of prevention, and get it out there. But it is an uphill battle, and I totally agree. And you have to be more inventive than I think other nonprofits when you're asking for money.
So many people think recovery, but they, and this is another thing. What I'm going to try to do with this 5K is I'm going to try to build, this media campaign of some kind that's going to, kind of anticipate this 5K in the spring, and and pull in because we're working a lot with the prevention, inside of recovery now. So that's kind of my goal. And I'm just praying with fingers crossed, toes crossed, that this is going to be, something that's going to also give a lot of recognition to Rescue 180 and what we're doing. And so far, whenever I've done this kind of thing, it has. But at the same time, to let people know, I've scratched your back now.
Yes. And there's nothing, you're doing the exact right thing. And what we're going to go ahead, I'm going to move through some of these slides so we get to it. And then if you have questions, we'll stay on to continue answering them. But I want to go ahead for those to get off that we could go. So business categories, kind of talking about what we did, intellectual property, and that simply is kind of like a drop. It was a lot of that. Have you thought of a proprietary idea? Even something like process facilitation is an idea of intellectual property, and that's even how you get your group together to make them work. So something like stat teams, that wasn't ours, and we don't have a trademark, so feel free to use it like crazy. But something like how someone makes a stat team work in their coalition can be intellectual property that you can sell and teach someone else how to do. Of course, that goes into training as well, materials, and then media are different business categories. So trademarking and copywriting, do your research, consult an attorney. There are do-it-yourself options and licensing agreements. So I'm going to start with do your research. You want to know what's out there. Like I said, Christina and I really saw the Drug Free Action Alliance Parents Who Host campaign, and we started looking at how they did it. Christina went to school with who was running it at the time, so she reached out to him so that we can model it. Like I said, if you ever reach out to us, we'd be happy to show you our stuff so you could help model whatever you're doing. And then we reached out to an attorney so that they could do some of the checks for us of seeing how things out there were already trademarked, to see if we were touching on anyone else's toes for copyright and things like that. You can do it yourself. We did our copywriting ourselves, but we had an attorney do our trademarking for us. And I will tell you immediately, even if you're not sure you're going to do something with it, if you feel like you have written or created something that you think is proprietary, that you are proud of, and you want other people to tell you when they're copying it, put the copyright on there or the TM. As soon as you do that, from the moment you start doing it, regardless of whether it takes you 2 years to trademark it, it's backdated to that day. You can't put the registered sign because the registered means it's already gone through. But that you could do the TM. So I recommend you doing that on the stuff you're producing, even if you don't know it's going to make money, even if you're not sure about it, because you have worked hard on it, you've spent time on it. Go ahead and put your mark on it so you could always backdate it in that way. And then always check in for your licensing agreement. And Kristina can kind of talk about the importance of a licensing agreement.
Well, while we were in the very beginning stages, I don't even know if we were thinking about fully the campaign yet, we had noticed that there were some national campaigns or even regional campaigns that were being used that they were kind of being piece and parceled, like the whole campaign wasn't being used or the tagline was being changed or there were pieces of it. And we wanted to make sure that didn't happen to us, that there was some kind of tooth to what we were doing, that when you saw Count It, Lock It, Drop It in Tennessee, that it would be the same thing if you saw it in another state or outside of Coffee County, that it looked the same, it sounded the same, that the messaging was all very fluid. So we worked with the same lawyers for the trademarking to work towards a licensing agreement that wasn't too hefty that coalitions or other groups would run away crying, but that also would keep our campaign intact and also give people some guidelines of how-tos.
And sorry, Christina, did you finish? I felt like you got cut off.
No, I did. I'm sorry.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't. And like I said, if you get anything from this slide as you're thinking through, because I know this is a lot of information, just start putting TM and copyright on it until you're ready. Not on everything. Like, don't go and put it on your agendas, people. But when you're working really hard, like we worked like years, and it's sad, but we worked years on getting our drug briefs down to a way that we like them. So that's something we work so hard on that it needs to have it on there. But so be always thinking about that. And I'm going to get to everyone's questions. And I know people have to go, so I'm trying to get through so you get it. Understanding pricing, retail versus cost. Do not underwrite yourself. I think the worst thing people do is forget to think about that. You want to make sure like this is exactly from everything from shipping to the graphic design fees and everything are part of every tiny thing that you do. So if you're selling, for instance, a counting brochure like we do, that you're looking at everything that it took from the cost of the graphic designer to the print to the wrapping it up to shipping it to get your actual cost. And then when you look at retail, what are you going to sell it for? Profit margins, when you look at businesses and in order to make money for the work you're doing, because you even have to think about your time, because you're actually taking your time to do this, has to be in what that cost is, that you have a 50 to 65% markup. And that's the base of what you get when you buy something, anything from like Walgreens to Walmart to anything else. The base rate is a 50 to 65% markup. So you really want to be thinking about pricing and work with people in your business community to help you with that. And as I said, cost considerations. We totally forgot when we started this. Like Christina said, you're getting to hear from a lot of stuff that we failed at, so that's why, is we totally forgot about shipping when we first developed our first pricing guide. And then thinking about the manufacturing and employee times. And then making sure you know your product, like I said, how the shipping to get it to you, the shipping to ship it out to someone else who bought it. All of that's really important to understanding pricing, and that's why it's so important to leverage your business community in helping you. So we won't go ahead and do the polling. I'll just quickly go through who would you leverage for help in the next 90 days. And Christina, do you kind of want to talk about why those people are important?
Yes. So not all of us have. I have a public health major, so I definitely don't have a business background. So having an accountant on board that can weed through some of those tax laws or even the profit margins, excuse me, that they are your expertise. And then obviously a lawyer, because some of this stuff does require some kind of law mind. A business leader that can really help you understand, especially if you don't have a business background, to help you understand the profit margins. That was something I had to learn. The cost of shipping, the cost of
employee time, all of that is a pretty comprehensive picture that if you're not used to, you may miss the boat like we did on shipping. We would be remiss if we didn't have our evaluator to show that our program is, we're working towards the evidence-based, and so we want to be able to show that it's working and why it works. And obviously, as evidence-based organizations, we want to be able to tell another organization we are evidence-based, and this is why, and this is what it could do for you. And others, sometimes you need, I'm not an artsy person, so sometimes you might need a graphic designer on board who has a bit more forethought in those things, or knows about logos, because logos are a tricky thing. The first original logos we used for our local community couldn't be reproduced and sold. So we had to go back to the drawing board on even our logo. So having those people on board that have an expertise and that are willing even to give their time is most helpful.
And as Kristina said with the evaluator, you want to be evaluating how this is working, because it's a great way. Yes, you're using this to make money, but it's a great way to get it funded, as we did with Count Lock It Drop It through the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation. So now we were able to show that this is working, that it's working well, and then have a plan in place to show how it could work in other communities by bringing on an evaluator who knows how to do the control groups and can help us get that information and help us leverage support for that data that we need to gather. So this is another way of, yeah, it's great, you're making money, but you can even make sure you're getting funding for what you're doing. So always be thinking of proving that this is working. And as Kristina said, like having a business leader on board has been incredible, because even for us, one of our local coffee shop who does our graphic design work too, she can buy some of the stuff we needed at much more reduced price because she's in the field. And so that allows us to make things at a lower cost and not have that on our back. So having those relationships help in other ways as well. And we'll go on so we can, I know everyone, the last thing we're going to end with is the life cycle of a product. And this goes back to, like I said, strategically planning and thinking about, we talked about last time, the book, The Goal, and about making sure you're always adapting. Because, like, for instance, with Count It, Lock It, Drop It, we made it, it's going up the curve, we grow, and we're actually at a point now where we have to adapt it. We figured out, don't be afraid to make changes. Certain things that we originally were all on board for, Christina and I just talked about recently, of cutting from the program and adding different things. Also talking about adding a next level of talking about heroin with Count It, Lock It, Drop It, and how we can move to do what is emerging trends and how it links with the opioid epidemic. Because if you don't, eventually it will, fail out, and you won't have this as something that continues to generate revenue for your coalition or nonprofit. And I love Parents Who Host. It's something that Kristina and I used for a long time in Coffee County, but they didn't really think about how they could grow it. And so they're still selling the same things like yard signs and things like that. And it's a great campaign, but they could do more with it if you look at it from a business perspective in terms of things that happen with social hosting. So really thinking about, and this is true of anything you're implementing, not just business, even a fundraiser. Like, yes, for the last 10 years you've done a silent auction, but are you still making the same amount of money? When you look at the amount of time that your staff is putting into it, are you really making that much money? Is it time to adapt and overcome? Or are you going to continue to go down where you're not making any money and it's a waste of time? So you want to always be strategically thinking about, don't rest on your laurels, so to speak, and always be willing to change and adapt, and don't just do things because it's always been done that way. Really start to think outside the box. Kristina, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you got it all.
Perfect. So before we answer questions, please attend part 3. I apologize for my dogs in the background. Kristina, you want to tell them about part 3 until that stops?
Yes, part 3 will be next Thursday, same time, where we'll talk about the evaluation piece, and our hope is to have some evaluators on that can speak to it much better than we can.
Yes, we have some great people who are doing evaluation for a long time from Global Evaluation Consulting that are going to come on and really talk about how your data relates to your sustainability and how you can take it to the next level. Our information's there. Please feel free to call or email Kristina or myself at any time. We're always available. And we'll stay on to answer some questions for those who are able to stay on. And don't forget, I just wanted to show the tool one more time. Leah sent this out, and I'm sure she'll send it out again if you want it, so that you can easily kind of use the tool that we're talking about to help you examine your budget and think about whether things are being effective for you. And this will be great for the next third part of the webinar, as we'll be talking about how that data relates to your budget and what you should cut. Okay, so questions. We will open it up. Let me see. There was one up here, Christina. So just starting, coordinators since June. As I have asked for donations, I have just asked, and I needed for, say, a competition. Would it be okay to go ahead and ask the Chamber for donations for future competitions? Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. Christina, do you?
No, I think having a long-term partner, and it helps with that business's budget to know that every year they're giving $100 to your organization or whatever it might be. Sometimes to get that line item, I think is helpful.
Yeah, and the more, and I think always, like she said, then they can anticipate it. You're getting in there on their plan or their budget line item, as Christina said. I think that was a great point. Because then they're always thinking about you when that time comes. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's thinking ahead, and it's a great idea. And then there's another. We have an intern with the health department who is assisting us with graphics and community outreach. That's awesome. That's great. Is there any other questions for Christina, myself, or Leah about any of this information? Like I said, I know we had to go through the last few slides quickly. So if you have more questions, do not hesitate to contact us at any time. But please unmute your phones if you have questions. Don't feel like you have to do it in the chat box now. Are we good? Well, I thank everyone. Christina and I will stay on for the next few minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Leah, do you have any parting words?
Just thank you all so much for participating, and I'll send out the survey link probably today or tomorrow. And also email me for certificates.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, Christina and I will stay here until everyone's gone in case people do have questions. So thank you so much, and enjoy your holiday weekend.
Hey, Christina, quick question
Yes.
on the Hamilton Youth Workbooks. What does that entail?
The workbooks that they have?
Yeah.
I can get, and who is this? This
is Rochelle.
Rochelle, I can actually have Calandra or Camilla reach out to you about it. It is workbooks that, like I said, their students develop to assist other students in getting across drug and alcohol information. It involves like even skits that they've come up with for students to do to other students. And I'm pretty sure they have it for 2 different grade levels. But I'm more than happy to connect you if you would like to know more about that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, of course.
Good stuff.
Christina?
Yes.
This is Robin from Tipton County.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Everything got pretty busy during that conference call. I didn't catch all of it. But I have a question. I may need to call you later. Do y'all have a fiscal agent, or you're on 501c3?
We actually, for the last 10 years plus, have been with the Coffee County school system. And in January of last year, we officially became our own 501.
Okay.
So we've been both.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to discuss that with you at some point.
Okay, yeah, call or email me at any time and we can get together and talk about that. But yeah, we've made the transition, and we know both Christina and I the ups and downs of being on your own and being underneath. But we actually have raised money under each, so we'd be happy to assist you in any way.
Okay, because we are trying to start our own fundraising, so we'll have some unencumbered funds, but don't really know how to do that because we have a fiscal agent. So I'll shoot you an email. We'll set up a time to talk. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Christina, this is Carla with Obion County Prevention.
Yes.
I was the one that sent the text about, I've been a coordinator since September, not June. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry.
But, like, we've just done little art competitions in the schools and stuff, and I would ask local businesses for donations, like, say, a Yeti cup or something like that. And when you were talking about you had asked the chamber, like, for,
Yeah.
you know, Sonic cards and things like that, that kind of was my question. Could I go ahead and ask for those?
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and that way when I had a competition, I didn't have to wait until that last minute, you know, a week before time and think, oh, gosh, what am I going to give the kids as a prize for something?
Definitely, because we had asked for the token economy, and so they went out and got that. And then I think it was 6 months later, it was around Christmas time, and they were like, do you mind if we raise money for your kids again? And instead of product, they actually raised $5,000 to help us get things for, like, Christmas presents, and then we ended up spending at least $1,000 of that on stuff for the token economy. So, yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. If you say, you know, this is for the youth we work with, we want to make sure on hand that we always have, you know, the awards and gifts for them as we do these competitions, and that we'll always make sure that the business gets a shout-out. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so just talk to someone at the chamber and ask them if they, or go to each business. Is that how you do it?
Well, actually, they sent out an email. We put together a flyer situation, and they sent it out via email saying, you know, I think we did a whole press release with them about, like, how businesses help our kids, and talked about the program, or talked about, like, for you could talk about several of the things you're doing. Please invest in our children. And then there's a week where they, like, dropped off things at the Chamber of Commerce or at our office.
Oh, okay. That's great. That helps a lot. Okay, so you were just like businesses help our kids.
Yeah, and it went through the chamber backed it, and we did like a group press release.
Oh, what was it?
Like a group press release with the chamber and us, and just saying, like, businesses come out and invest in our children. This is what we're trying to do. This is what will happen. These are kind of, we said what we were looking for. We said we'd love activities for kids to do with their parents, such as, you know, like things to the rec center or to the bowling alley, places they could eat together as a family, like, you know, Zaxby's or Sonic, and then just little things like to get them more active, or like if you could donate soccer balls, or we're trying to make it be very, because to get health involved too, that
active.
They were outside and stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Christina, it's Sarah Blessing from Power Putnam.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So you guys went through the chamber and just sent out a newsletter to just several different local businesses. Usually, the reason I'm asking is usually what happens is that we're going out, like, personally to all these businesses, you know, and I agree with you on the last minute, because sometimes it does happen. You're like, oh, man, I've got to do this, and we need to give them a prize. What are we going to do? You know, it does happen. But that's just what I was going to ask. Did you just go through the chamber and send out because I think we're in our chamber's newsletter, and it tells a little bit about us, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
But so you just did your own little, like, press release through them, and did you mail them out to all your local businesses?
We did a little, like, one, like, slide thing that they sent out as part. The way our chamber works is now they have a newsletter that they wait and put everything out at. But at the time, they actually, for each member, you were allowed once a month where they would send something out for you. And sometimes they'll still do that for us. So what we asked is that they sent out basically this one little slide that kind of said, invest in your children. This is what we're looking at. Please support us, and gave them ideas. And then on top of it, we did a press release with a picture with the chambers that went out to all the paper. So the businesses got it in their inbox through their relationship with the chamber, but then we also did a press release that went to the local papers and then ended up on the radio that was talking about what we're asking for and why businesses were important with the coalition, and saying kind of what we're asking for.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm going to check into that. That'll be much easier than going here and there and everywhere asking, because it takes a lot of time.
It does. And Christina does that firsthand, because they recently did a transition academy where it took a lot of time, I know, for her to ask for a lot of that stuff.
Yes, I volunteered for several nonprofit foundations before, and we always did fundraising, and that was basically what I would do is I would go around and I did a lot of volunteer work with the American Cancer Society for Relay for Life, and we would just go around to basically every business we could.
Well, hey, I'm impressed by people who could ask for stuff because, as Kristina will know, I don't ask for things.
Okay.
Christina, this is Carla with Elbine County. I hate to get on here again, but
no, it's fine.
we're not a member of the chamber, so you really need to have that. I mean, I have a relationship with someone there, but we aren't a member there.
For us, it was one of the best things we did for us to join, and they should have a nonprofit rate for you, but if you have a connection, they're willing to do it even if you're not a member or you don't have that in your budget. Or we have gone through, for instance, we may have used our once a month thing that we could get out. So what we did was go through one of the women's clubs who was a member of the chamber, and they asked for it to be the one thing that they put out a month with something else we need to get out. So you can leverage other people who might be part of the chamber if you.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, if you're not in a position to be part of the chamber. Yeah, because that's worked for us. Like I said, the Women's Club has put stuff out, or Kat, who does our graphic design, has. So even if you're not a member, there are ways around that. But, yeah, it's great to be involved with your chamber to get stuff like that out so you don't have to go door to door.
Right. Okay, that's great. Thanks for your help.
Of course. Okay, is there any other questions before Kristina and I jump off?
I'd like to speak to that dog that had something to say earlier.
I know. I'm sorry. My Labrador, she's all love and bark. She definitely had something to say a minute ago. She needs to go out immediately. We call her Sammy the train wreck. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Like I said, Kristina and I are always available. Kristina, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
No, I thank you for staying on so long. I know we've ran over, and I appreciate everyone's feedback. That helps us.
Yes. Thank you all so much. And like I said, be in contact with Leah if you need CPS credits or anything, and let her know what other trainings you might like in the future, because I know she's always looking to make sure she's got what you need. So thank you all so much, and we'll be in touch.